Hello, and welcome back. This is the first video essay I'm writing for Pokemon since I first created the channel. As to why that is, I see this as a hobby channel for my friends and I to enjoy Pokemon, which is why Darian is basically a second party to the channel. What we get together and get done is amazing in my eyes, but it is time for me to put a bit more work onto the solo projects again. One big inspiration for me is this year's newest release, Pokemon TCG Pocket. A lot of TCG and mobile TCG veterans have been talking non-stop about this game since the closed beta, and this time I wanted to talk about something that might have already been covered. If that's the case, just let me know down below. If not, then I hope you enjoyed today's video. Today we are talking about staples. If you aren't sure of the definition, staples are simply cards with widespread appeal across multiple decks in a meta. Staples change across formats and new releases, but they are a very important part of TCGs. I also believe that what makes a card good enough to be a staple depends on the game and its limits as well. For example, every game has some version of Professor's Research, a draw 2 or in some cases draw 3 with little to no cost. The reason why a card like this has universal value regardless of the deck is due to how fundamental draw power is. Adding cards to your hand means you get access to what you need quicker. The same goes for search cards like Pokeball. I'm sure any TCG Pocket player has more than felt the benefits of these two cards. So instead of raving about them, I want to talk about another kind of staple. Engines are cards that work together to help sustain your hand and field. Typically they are cards that chain into each other or otherwise have a nice sustainable synergy. The main example I want to talk about from TCG Pocket is the Weezing Koga engine. The main idea is that you can get a Pokemon in the active slot that doesn't require energy to function, has enough health to eat an attack, and is then able to return to your hand, giving you both a free switch-in and stopping your enemy from getting a point. To go more in depth, this combo requires 3, arguably 4 cards. You need a copy of Coughing, a copy of Weezing, and a copy of Koga. I would also argue that you need another copy of Coughing in the event you need to continue stalling for your bench. Coughing evolves with the Weezing, and the Weezing can take most hits with its 110 HP. Then once you are ready to switch out or deny a point, you activate Koga in order to return both the Coughing and the Weezing from the active slot to your hand. A lot of decks like to try and use these cards in order to stall while they stack energy on other cards. Whether it be Blastoise, Alakazam, or Dragonite, you can put Weezing into any deck and use it as a defensive core. Not every deck will want to use this Koga engine if instead it requires other support cards such as Misty or Blaine in order to fight back. Since support cards can only be used once per turn, you have to think through your turns a bit more so that you don't lock yourself out of a potentially better move. That said, decks already use Professor's Research and Sabrina, so when I say any deck can attempt this engine, I mean just about any deck can. This is mainly why I wanted to make this video, because with Genetic Apex being our only expansion, people have built every possible deck. During the first Emblem event, I finally unlocked my second copy of Dragonite, and looking into possible ways to play it, I settled on using the Weezing engine to give me as many possible turns to get Dragonite online. Just to then coin flip most of those games away anyways.
Alright, we win. We win.
Doug, we dropped a Draco on him. First Dragonite game is a W. We love to see it.
I'm
And
praying.
now we put the gimmick away for now.
I'm currently praying. If this Draco Meteor hits, we win.
No,
No, we lost. Alright, GG.
But hey, at least I had fun and finished the event's missions. It was then that I realized something that I just simply didn't enjoy about this deck. Although playing Weezing and Koga can be a safe way to build up your bench, actually hitting the preferred game state is pretty difficult. If we take a moment to review what we talked about, for a Dragonite deck with Weezing and Coughing as the defensive core, you can open with either Dratini or Coughing. Because the Coughing line only has 1 evolution and the Dratini line has 2, that's 4 evolution cards for the Dratini deck versus the 2 evolution cards for Coughing. If you include Koga, that's an even 4-4. The problem then becomes the order in which you eventually grab those cards and what your early game looks like as a result. Ideally, opening with Dratini, we want Coughing, Dragonair or Dragonite, Weezing, and Koga. We do not want to open without Koga, Weezing, and Coughing, because that is what will allow us to stall for Dragonite with 4 energies. While most decks do want at least a few turns to ramp up, it is also entirely possible you run into a deck with good damage in the active bench. You could also run into an early Sabrina, which then requires us to either waste a turn of energy or requires an X speed in order to retreat. We could also have an open that leads to all 4 basics early or to Dratini. In that case, if you're forced to, you can get away with sacrificing a Dratini for another one on the bench. There are a lot of ways in which 20 cards can be distributed, and with one of your first cards always being either Coughing or Dratini, there's a fascinating issue that may plague the game for years to come. What is the split between the offense and defensive halves of a deck like this, and is it consistent enough to warrant playing in the meta? There are always trade-offs in card games. It would completely ruin the experience to break it down card by card amongst the entire pool of cards available when you are building your deck. All I want to focus on here is this deck in particular that I constructed using the Weezing engine with the aim to get Dragonite online as safely as possible. The results are easy to duplicate with any Stage 2 focused deck using the Weezing engine. The split is 6-6-8. That is 6 cards for the Dragonite, 6 cards to play Koga Weezing, and 8 trainer cards that aren't Koga. If we break it down further, it's 6 Dragonite, 6 Weezing Koga, 4 draw cards, being Professor's Research and Pokeball, and then 4 cards you have to add in order to complete the deck. These cards shouldn't include more Pokemon because it will slow down the Pokeball and Professor's Research as draw cards, and can cost you more points and inconsistencies in the deck. I prefer at least 1 potion, 1 X speed because you do situationally need both. 2 potions make it so you avoid killing blows more consistently at the cost of always needing energy to retreat. 2 X speeds means you will always have an easier time swapping into the ideal active Pokemon at the cost of sustain. No matter how you end up playing it, you will have 4 slots to play whatever you want.
So with the basics out of the way, I thought I would show some sample opening hands in order to clarify my point. That point being, engines in Pokemon TCG Pocket may be limited by the game's deck size and the simple odds of a starting hand. So as we go through this, I'm going to just sort of talk about these opening hands as they come. So first one, we do have Coughing, we have Dratini, we have Dragonite. So obviously we're going to put Coughing in the active slot, Dratini on the bench, and then what do we draw? We draw Dragonair. So now we have all 3, but no Weezing, no Koga, no extra Coughing. Depending on what the enemy is playing, this might not be bad. We're going to draw again. Now we have Koga and another Coughing and Professor's Research. So think about how many turns have passed here, and then the Professor's Research will activate, and there's no Weezing. There's just no Weezing. So any chance of our Koga being used is just gone by this point in the game. We did hit a Professor's Research, which will speed us up a little bit, but we could still get to a point where Dragonite is playable with this hand. We're going to restart. We're going to do it again. Here we have Dratini, Dragonair, Koga, Pokeball, and Potion. So Pokeball will either pull Dratini or one of the 2 Coughings. It's a higher odds technically to get the Coughing. So let's say we have Coughing here. We have Dratini in. Let's draw. We have Dragonite. So we have all of our pieces except Weezing. Professor's Research activates, and then we get Weezing. So it's a couple of turns. We do have to sack an energy in order to swap Dratini so that Dratini isn't taking the damage. So again, not an optimal hand, but this is definitely playable, just like the last hand. Okay, this hand is just abysmal. This hand is just abysmal. So we have to start with Dratini again. We draw a card for our turn. We activate Professors. We're dead. We are dead. We gotta wait next turn. We get another 3 cards because we have the other Professors. We have Dragonair. How long does it take to hit Dragonite? We just don't hit Dragonite. There it is. Wow, okay. This is not a normal hand for sure. This is a really bad hand. That one I will chalk up to some extremities. I don't think that's a hand that you're gonna get too often. Coughing. We have Dragonite. We don't have Koga, Weezing, Dratini, Dragonair. Pokeball will pull either a Coughing if we're unlucky or a Dratini. So we have Dratini and Dragonite in this situation. We get another Pokeball, so we have either 2 Coughing or 2 Dratini. We have the Weezing. We don't have Dragonair. We're missing Dragonair in this example. And we just don't pull it. So again, like this is sort of, it's really fun to do. You guys can try it out with any deck. Use the Weezing engine as displayed in the video, and then just add any any stage 1 or stage 2 deck, and you will run into this problem with varying degrees. So again, we get to put Coughing, Weezing, and Koga are all here. We have a Pokeball, so we either get a second Coughing to complete the Koga engine, or we end up with a second Dratini. Now, how long until we get Dragonair? Okay, so that Dratini doesn't count because we're Pokeballing. So the Dratini and the Coughing here, they don't count, because we Pokeballed at least one of those. So we're going to do a couple of draws here. We got another Pokeball, which is useless. Okay, so we hit Dragonair pretty early, but it takes a while to get Dragonite. We can use the Coughing Engine properly, stack Dratini, and eventually we do get that Dragonite. But this will still be a couple of turns. It might not go the way we want it. We do hit 2 Dragonair. We do hit the 2 Dratini. So chances are we can sack a Dragonair if we need to stall further. And we will eventually hit the Dragonite, but we'll probably lose 1 to 2 health. Alright, so let's do one more. Dratini, Dragonite, and again, we open with a Weezing and nothing else. We pull 2 Weezing, which is this is a really, really bad hand now. Another Dratini, another Dragonite. We Pokeball for Coughing, so now we have Coughing. That Coughing doesn't count. We get the second Coughing, and we just never hit Dragonair. So I hope that this shows what I have tried to explain in depth in this video. I do like the idea of having these engines, but with the 20 deck size, you have 4 different cards that you can actually skew in a stage 2 deck to try and craft it to your liking. But if you are playing, perhaps, let's for example say we're playing Marowak EX and Weezing, that might be a little easier to manage it, because then you'll have more free cards to pull from. Maybe you can run more potions or double X speed or however you want to do it. But at the end of the day, like, these cards aren't really necessarily helping you get to the end state that you want to get to. So you're mostly stuck with the situation that I laid out before, where you have like 6 for Dragonite, 6 for Koga. You have 4, the 2 professors, the 2 Pokeballs for a core 4, and then you have 4 extra cards. That's usually how this deck gets laid out. And as a result, your opening hands need to be perfect, or they need to be close to perfect. So in this example, again, this isn't that bad. The only thing we're missing is Koga, and we do get some extra cards from Professor's Research, but we never hit Koga. So if you have any more questions about this, please let me know down below. I think this is a really fun and fascinating aspect of the game that I'm hoping nobody's really talked about yet. Also, shout out to xburst.dev, really cool website. I'm really liking this. I'm gonna play with this a lot when the next set comes out. But in terms of defensive core, the reason why the Dragonite deck probably isn't as high as it can be, with how destructive the Dragonite can be, is just because you don't really have anything to pair with it. And while Weezing might be the best, or some of the other engines that people try and use are pretty good, the problem really just comes down to how the deck is lined up, and just your odds of hitting something like the Weezing and Koga engine, while also being able to put your entire offense on the board and start stacking it. It just takes a lot of time, and most hands aren't going to get you to it in a reasonable amount of time. So thank you so much if you made it this far into the video, and until next time, I hope you take care.